Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi. My name's Kayla and I'm autistic. Currently, I make videos related to my autism. I hope to add to the voices of autistic people out there to hopefully shed some light on our experiences and what we go through on a daily basis. I try to upload a new video every couple weeks, but it's hard with a 9-month-old. I'm also a mama. Making these videos is a way for me to process my own feelings, my own experiences. It's been very therapeutic and cathartic for me. This video is going to be part 1 out of a several part series dissecting, analyzing, describing, going over my entire medical care journey from infancy to present. There was no way I could put all of it into one video. The reason I want to share my medical healthcare, medical stories, is because I think my autism shaped the way that I view seeking medical care and contributed to a lack of understanding and adequate communication between me and a healthcare provider. I think that it did create barriers for me to get the proper medical care that I truly needed. Being autistic already puts you in a group of people who are underrepresented and also tend to be very gullible and can be taken advantage of. While I will mention mental health as part of this entire story, I am not going to go into detail about mental health specifically. That is a separate video that I want to do, and it will be very focused on specifically my mental health care journey. In this video, I will cover my medical healthcare journey starting from infancy going till about 13-14. With all that said, let's get into it. We are going way back to me inside my mom's belly, because that is where this story begins. My parents didn't know it yet, but I had a congenital diaphragmatic hernia, or CDH. It is a rare birth defect. My mom did experience a large bleed with me while she was pregnant that they think might have contributed to this birth defect, but they honestly really don't know. It was not caught in utero. My parents had no idea until I was maybe 20 months old, so I was almost 2 years old. My sickly symptoms, appearance, everything really compounded and became exacerbated, especially after the point where my lung completely collapsed. So that hernia, which is just a outpouching of the tissue, actually burst and ruptured, slowly reducing the pressure in my lung, collapsing it completely, pulling the majority of my small intestines, part of my large intestines, my stomach and spleen into my chest cavity. Once the x-ray was taken that diagnosed my condition, it was an emergency situation. Painstaking, long, very intricate surgery. I was very, very lucky to have the surgeon that I did, because he actually dissected my partially adhered diaphragm to my chest wall off to be able to close that with my own diaphragm tissue. Otherwise, I would have had to have some sort of mesh, which is likened to a skin graft if you have like a burn, which means it's not as good as your normal natural tissue, and it's not going to function the same. If you know what your diaphragm does, it is the muscle that expands and contracts your lungs, so it is important for breathing. So people generally have complications with this mesh if that is what's used. Thankfully, I did not. After I healed, I've had a remarkable recovery. I've been told by several doctors that I am extremely lucky to be alive. Considering this huge thing that happened to me at a very early age, my shyness or my kind of timid behavior was attributed to this near-death experience, which is extremely valid for my parents to have thought that. I also didn't grow for 2 years, so I was like the size of a 3-year-old when I entered kindergarten. My activities were highly restricted. I wasn't allowed to do any contact sports at all. My parents were even a little scared to let me dance, but they did allow me to do that because I needed some sort of physical activity to do. I also got pneumonia a lot as a result. With all that going on, it wasn't until about 3rd or 4th grade that my parents figured out that my eyesight was not good. I remember getting in trouble because I would look at my peers' paper when the teacher would be writing stuff on the board. I would copy it from them and not from the board because I couldn't see it. I also had a stim that was partially because I was autistic, but partially because of my bad eyesight, and I would do this like really intense like blinking. Another reason why this wasn't caught as soon, because I decided I was going to memorize the seeing eye chart at school. So when they did, the yearly, maybe it was every 6 months, our school would put on hearing tests and seeing tests, scoliosis tests, just kind of like checking the students real quick. The school nurse would do this. I don't know if every school did this, but my elementary school did. I memorized the seeing eye chart, so I would just spout out the letters that are like closest to the bottom, and they're like, she's good. My parents finally decided to take me to an actual optometrist, and when that part came to see the chart, I froze and was just like, I know it's an E, but it's real blurry. And the doctor was like, oh no, her eyesight's real bad. I got glasses, but the glasses made me super nauseous, headaches, could not adjust to them, was always losing them or breaking them. It was a struggle, and then I finally convinced my parents, begged them to let me get contacts when I was 12 years old. I've been, solid with contacts ever since. My eyesight has also just progressively gotten worse as I've gotten older. But I'm terrified about eye surgery and probably will never get it. In the midst of all of this chaos at the beginning of my life, I also had gut issues from a very early age, mostly constipation. That was the number one gut issue. This was of course attributed to my CDH post-surgery. They had to pull all of my guts out of my chest cavity and relay them in my stomach. The first really intense constipation episode that I had is when I was about 12. I just collapsed to the floor. I was in so much pain. I couldn't talk. I couldn't even do anything. My parents were very worried and rushed me to the hospital, only to discover that I was severely constipated. But it was very, very painful. If anybody has dealt with severe constipation, it is honestly no joke. It's very painful. Very, very painful. And then I was introduced to the lovely enema for the first time. Gut issues is also tied or linked to autism. If you didn't know that, it's in one of my previous videos, but it's one of those lesser known traits, but it's getting a little more traction right now and people are starting to do some research into it. At about age 12, I start my period. It was literally the worst day of my fucking life. I was like, why is this happening to me? I hate this. I don't want to have a period. I feel like crap. I have to manage this flow situation. I was just so pissed. And of course, it was just a huge change to my normal life, because now it's it's not just you get a period and you're like, oh, okay, and then you move on with your life. It's no, you have a period and now you're gonna have one every single month now. I did not take it well. My periods can be extremely debilitating. There is also a link between autism and dysmenorrhea, and dysmenorrhea is painful, debilitating menstrual cycles. I didn't actually get this diagnosis until I was 20, because prior to that, my primary care physician was doing all of my womanly exams. But after complaining, my PCP finally said, you should probably go see an OBGYN, and get this evaluated. I'll tell that story in the next video. So coming into 13, 14, I'm a freshman in high school. This is the first time that I think I had a very intense depressive episode that was very long lasting. It could have been autistic burnout or a combination of the two, but I just remember that age, I really hit a wall with my mental health. It's when I started self-medicating with drugs, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, just really, really struggling mentally. A close friend of mine had died that previous year, and it was a very difficult thing for me to go through. I didn't have a lot of close friends. I didn't know how to talk about my feelings or even be able to describe them enough to talk about them. So I just kept a lot of that inside, and it all kind of just festered and boiled, and a big combination of overload emotions and numbing myself emotions, and as well as trying to numb myself with substances. This is also the time that I started disordered eating. I would starve myself as well as binge and purge. Visually, I was very skinny and sickly, probably close to like 100 pounds, but I was at my full height, so I was like 5'5", about 100 pounds. Just clearly not doing so hot. When my parents found out about what I was doing, they brought me to my first psychiatrist. She diagnosed me with bulimia nervosa. I will mention here too, I was very good at pretending to be okay. I was very good at fooling the adults around me. At least it seemed like that to me. So even if I was far from okay, I could put on a mask that made everyone feel like, oh, Kayla's good. She's okay. When I wasn't on the inside. That 14, 15-year-old period, freshman in high school time, was definitely a huge turning point in my life. I think this is a good time to wrap up this part 1 video. Thanks for watching. I don't know how many videos are gonna end up being in the series. I'm guessing at least 3. Just remember, this is more of like a snapshot of my medical history, even though there's still a lot of information and there's a lot of stories to tell. Thanks for sticking in there. Love yourself, be kind to yourself, and catch you on the flip side.